Hey there, welcome to another episode of Legends with Elroy. Today, I'm excited to tell you another story about Billy Bob the Knight. So Billy Bob was a pretty cool guy, but you already know that because I talk about him all the time. Now this story starts just like many others in Billy Bob's bedroom. Eggs and bacon. What was that? Billy Bob woke up and he was tired. But he got out of bed and walked to the front door. He opened it and there before him was his friend, Stanley the skunk. He said, "Stanley, what are you doing today? I'm really tired." "Oh, what are you doing here?" And Stanley said, "Billy Bob, I'm sorry to bother you right now, but I need your help." Billy Bob said, "Okay, well, what do you need?" And Stanley said, "Well, I need help because you see, I want to give some roses to my sweetheart, Sally the skunk, but, well, I can't smell them, and I want to make sure that they smell good, and I need you to make a nice bouquet for me so you can give them to her." Billy Bob said, "Well, Stanley, couldn't this have waited until the morning? Also, I'm not really a florist or anything like that. I'm sure that you could probably figure this out." And Stanley said, "Billy Bob, I need your help, and I need to give them to her today." Billy Bob said, "Oh, okay, I'll be right back." So Billy Bob went inside, and he got dressed. And then him and Stanley went outside to find the roses. Billy Bob said, "Well, do they have to be roses, Stanley?" And Stanley said, "Yes." Billy Bob said, "Well, the roses only grow past the dark forest." And Stanley said, "Well, then we'll have to go to the dark forest." Billy Bob said, "But I don't really want to go there. It's kind of creepy." And Stanley said, "We have to go." "Okay, let's go." So they set off for the dark forest. Now, it was just about morning time when they got to the dark forest, and they stepped inside, and Billy Bob heard rustling. He's like, "Man, I don't know how I got myself into this. If I was going for some great treasure or something like that, that'd be pretty cool. But I'm not. I'm looking for roses. Does this skunk even know what a rose is? I don't know. Well, anyways, so they set off, and they were walking through the forest, and they kept hearing rustling in the trees. They were like, "Oh no, I wonder what's up there." You never know what's up there. And then suddenly, walnuts started flying all over the place. They're like, "Ah! Oh!" And all these squirrels were throwing walnuts at him. And Billy Bob said, "Run for it!" And they're running fast. And then, whoa! Billy Bob fell over. And I think he fell on a tree root because his back really hurt. But after a lot of running, they were able to make it through the forest, even though Billy Bob's back really hurt. Now, once they made it to the other side of the forest, they saw a great pasture full of roses. And Billy Bob said, "Okay, so you want me to just grab a couple roses and we can go?" And Stanley said, "Only the right roses." And Billy Bob said, "Okay, well, what are the right roses?" And Stanley said, "I will know when I see them." Billy Bob said, "Okay, well, what about these?" And he said, "No, those, no, these, no." "Okay, well, what color do you want?" He said, "Well, I was kind of thinking maybe a pink. And Billy Bob picked up a pink rose, and he said, no. He said, well, maybe a red. Billy Bob picked up a red rose, and he said, no. Maybe a white with a smidge of yellow. Okay, Stanley, you gotta make up your mind, okay? He said, okay. Well, what about those? And there they were. They were the most beautiful roses of them all. Now, they had 100 petals to every rose, and they were a beautiful, dainty, light pink. And Billy Bob walked up, and he was just about to cut the rose when he heard a buzzing. And then he looked to the side, and he saw them. Bees! And Billy Bob said, bees, oh no! And they started running, and the bees started flying after them. And they're like, oh no, we gotta run for it. And then Billy Bob ran into a tree. He was knocked out cold. So suddenly he came to, and there were all these bees on him, but they weren't stinging him. And then one started talking to him, and Billy Bob was like, man, I must have hit my head hard. The bees are talking to me. And it said, Billy Bob, what are you doing? And Billy Bob said, how do you know my name? They said, well, everybody knows your name. We're really surprised at you. Why would you try to take our flowers? Billy Bob said, I'm just trying to help out a skunk. The Stanley guy over there. They're like, oh, Stanley? He ran back into the woods. Billy Bob said, oh, I hope he's okay. They're like, well, he probably is. And Billy Bob said, okay, well, I'm sorry I tried to take the flowers. I'm just trying to help Stanley. And they said, well, you can have some roses if you ask for them. But first we need you to help with something. There's a bear, and he's been stealing all our honey. Billy Bob said, okay, well, do you need me to fight the bear? They said, yes, that would be great. Billy Bob said, how do I get myself into these things? I mean, I don't even want the roses. And I love honey, but I wouldn't say that around these bees. They may not understand. But for Stanley, I guess I'll do it. And just then he heard Stanley yelling, are you okay, Billy Bob? I'll fight all these bees if I have to. And Billy Bob said, don't worry about it, Stanley. Come on over here. I have to fight a bear. Stanley said, oh, that's not good. But best of luck. Billy Bob said, Stanley, you're gonna help. He said, oh. So Billy Bob and Stanley set off to the clearing where the bear was. Billy Bob said, Stanley, if I say do it, then you know what to do, right? And Stanley said, yes. So they set off. Now, they came to the clearing, and they were looking around, and then suddenly they heard a big roar. They're like, oh no, it's a bear. And out from the trees stepped a big bear. It was 2 times taller than Billy Bob. That's a lot taller. And Billy Bob said, bear, run now, and I'll let you go. But stay and fight, and you don't stand a chance. The bear said, I can fight you. Who are you anyways? And Billy Bob said, I'm Billy Bob, the Knight. The bear said, Billy Bob the Knight, the legend himself. Well, Billy Bob, we can be friends. Why don't you help me out? You see, I really like berries, and I'm willing to give you some honey if you get some berries for me. And Billy Bob said, okay, that doesn't sound very hard. I guess I'll do it. And Bear said, okay, let's go. So they came up to this berry tree, well, berry bush. It was blackberries. And he said, I need you to get those berries I can't reach. Billy Bob said, but those all have thorns. And he said, well, otherwise you have to fight me. So Billy Bob and Stanley got in there, and they were like, oh, ah. And they were picking berries left and right, but they kept getting hit by all the thorns. I was like, oh, ah. ow, oh, my toes. But after a lot of picking, they got enough berries, and they gave them to the bear. And the bear said, "My name is Berry, and I thank you very much. Now take this honey as a token of my appreciation." Okay, thank you. Stanley, this better be worth it. I have so many spikes in my back, it hurts. And Stanley said, "Me too." So they came up to the bees and they said, "Here's the honey." The bees said, "Thank you very much. Take a little cup of it and take the roses." Billy Bob said, "Okay, Stanley, you go get the roses." And Stanley said, "Well, I'm kind of tired of having thorns in me. Could you get them?" Billy Bob said, "Of course I can." So he got in. He was like, "Oh, ow, ee, ow, ooh, ah, ee, ah." This really hurts. But he got all the roses. So finally they made it back home. And Billy Bob gave Stanley all the roses so that Stanley could then put them in a bouquet, which Billy Bob, of course, helped with. And then Billy Bob got in his bathtub and was plucking out thorns because he had a lot in him from all the roses. And he was happily singing, "Splish splash, I was taking a bath, all about a Saturday night. A rubber-tubber just relaxing." One of these days I'm gonna finish a bath, and it's gonna be a good day. Well, I'll see you guys in the next episode of Legends with Elroy. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya.